ADHD and resilience. This friend I have on here right now, his name is Leo Guinan. What he does not know is that he is going to close this out. He is going to be the final one-on-one conversation that I will have. Leo is one of my closest friends. He has been a mentor, a supporter, and been there every step of the way for this podcast. This does not exist without him. And so it's only fitting that we close out one-on-ones with Leo Guinan. Leo, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've always loved everything that you're doing with this podcast and with everything. That's why I was so eager to jump in and help anywhere I can. And I'm honored to be the last one. We're going to close it out strong. And This is just going to be a stepping stone to, season 100 here in, I don't know, a year and a half.
It has gone by pretty quick. 2 years with 100 episodes plus, like that's a lot of shit, especially when you don't know what you're doing and you wear these. Maybe by next season I'll have a microphone like you. These are going to be short and sweet. I explained to everyone else they're going to be 3 questions. The first question is, with your ADHD and your autism, what can you pinpoint as some of the biggest weaknesses? And that's a change from what I would normally do, but I'm curious.
This is something that is, I'm constantly keeping this like at the front of my mind, because one of the things that I found is that I will let my strengths compensate for my weaknesses in a way that I never actually address the weaknesses. And so one of the ways this manifests is, I'm very good on like the technical side of things. And so it's very easy for me to just be like, oh, well, I'll just focus on the tech as I'm building something and just like neglect the other pieces, like, because I'm not as good at them. And so one of my weaknesses is that I'm really good at rationalizing away my weaknesses and being like, oh, I'll just like do the stuff I'm good at. And what I found is that I really need to focus on these weaknesses at least enough to get them up to a certain level. They don't have to ever be great, but if I ever want to achieve the levels of success that I'm hoping for, I have to figure out how to actually confront those weeknesses. In
Good
addition,
advice. It's good advice, because that's something I don't do. I just don't address them.
I try really hard not to. And again, it's really easy to just rationalize it as like, oh, I don't need to worry about that because I'm just going to worry about this other stuff. But in the end, like that holds me back, because it's like I can just spin my wheels in kind of like doing the stuff that I'm good at and like never getting as far as I could if I just got like a little bit better at these other pieces, right? Like, and like, oh, well, maybe if I were just like slightly more organized, like this can take off, or, slightly better able to like adopt like standard practices as opposed to doing everything my own way. Which let's be honest, it's probably all going to be my own way. But and that's actually something that I found, is that when it comes to addressing those weaknesses, if I do them in creative ways, I don't find it as painful as if I just said like, oh, I need to do this in the way that everybody suggests. It's like, actually, I can do a similar thing, but like do it over here. And so instead of doing the traditional marketing approaches and everything, it's like, hey, I'll start a YouTube channel and I'll get comfortable conveying ideas on screen in limited amounts of time. And then all of a sudden, I now have a marketing skill set about being able to talk about things that I can use in other areas. And so if I can redirect that, I tend to find that's really, really helpful in addressing those weaknesses.
So that's fantastic. And the reason that is fantastic is, I want to go into this a little bit more, is how much effort do you have to put in addressing weaknesses? Like, how much emotional and physical, energy does it take to address those things? And is it worth it?
I found that the hardest piece for me is getting started.
Got it.
because this goes back to my all of my advice about like just post it and everything,
Right.
because it's really easy to get caught up about all the stuff that um all the reasons that like I suck at something and
Right.
I hate being bad at stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but if I can let myself be bad at things at the beginning, I can get way better, way faster than most people because
Gotcha.
I'm going to focus on that because being bad at stuff is painful. And so if I can make it easier, like that's been one of the hardest pieces. And like, I think with the YouTube channel, starting off, it's like, oh my God, like got to figure out how to like, edit these videos or whatever and like put them together. And so the first ones I just kind of like slap together. And then I'm like, okay, now I've got to like learn a bit about what I'm doing. And then it's like, oh, now I'll like throw in some like effects and like different ways. And then
Right.
it's like, and so, it's not even been like, maybe it's been about 4 weeks, I think, from tomorrow since I launched the channel, but you can see like this definite evolution because like I just need to know more about what I'm doing
Right.
because I don't like feeling like I have no idea of like how to do this stuff. But once I get it started, that's all I need. Like I
Yeah.
can keep it going because that's when I start finding like the little rabbit holes of like, oh, like I wonder how I do this and like, oh, maybe I can do this now and all of that. So
So that
for me, that's
re-energizes you
yeah, it
a little bit.
does.
So your weaknesses actually energize you.
Lobau Spark has started a fundraising effort for Crisis Text Line. We have a goal of $19 per episode, as $19 supports one person in their time of absolute crisis with their mental health. If you would like to donate through our fundraiser titled Lauren's Infinity, the link is listed in the episode's description. Lauren was my wife's best friend and loved by all who came into contact with her.
To a certain.
If I can start addressing them, but
Okay.
it's like I'm really good at like hiding my weaknesses from myself and being like,
Oh, me too.
oh, like I'm just like
Yeah.
I'm going to ignore this box over here that
Right.
says weaknesses on it, and I'll pretend it doesn't exist, and then like
Right.
um, and so that's kind of another thing that I like to do is I like to put myself in positions that my weaknesses can get pointed out to me. And so like with the groups that I join and like so like doing the customer learning lab with that like investment firm, like they were able to point out to me areas that I was weak. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, like I could see those now. And now I can work on those and like tweak them. And then like I put myself in this competition and all of a sudden like, I don't make the top, which I fully expected to win because I always expect to win.
Right.
And of course I didn't because it was like a ton of people. But then I also got to see like, okay, there's the top. That's where I need to be. Good. I've got a vision. I know what I've got to do. Hit the weaknesses, pull out the box, start go, okay, well, I need to do this, just hit it running.
I love it. So that's actually incredible because what you just described is a no pain, no gain scenario, which is, but how are you able to take that constructive criticism well? Because a lot of people with mental health issues don't take that well. And it's like me and you, I'm fine with it. Like I'm fine someone saying like you suck, whatever, because I know I'm awesome. And you're the same way. But what about the person that can't take that very well? How do you
I'm not good at accepting it. I'm terrible at it, but
Oh,
I've
you're
been doing
terrible.
it to myself
Okay.
for 3 years.
Got it. Okay.
At this point. And like, I've been putting myself in these situations and I'll get told I suck and that, whatever. And it's like, you've got to do this, this, and this. And I put myself into places where I could get that feedback, knowing that it's going to be painful, because at least that way I can kind of like prep myself for it and it's not as painful. It's when it comes out of the blue and like in areas where I was like, I'm totally gonna rock this, and like, and it comes
Yeah.
back and it's like, no, none. What are you even doing? Like, no. So it's painful, and there's still even that like, it's less painful and maybe not as actionable. But if you could put yourself in a way where it's like you're not getting direct feedback on like what you didn't do well, but you get to see that, one, you aren't good enough, and two, you get to see what good enough looks like. And so when they publicly like have like the winners, and you see the different people and like what they're doing and how they're successful, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, now I know what I'm shooting for. Whereas beyond that, like it's, but honestly, you just got to put yourself in that situation, and it's easier to do like when you have people you trust who can deliver that. And even tell them like, hey, like, tell me what I need to hear. It's gonna suck. I'm probably gonna get upset by it.
Yeah.
But I need to hear it.
Yeah.
And if you could do that, and then if you don't feel like doing that, the other option is to like find somebody who doesn't know you and is like, their job is to tell you where you're not good at. And there's so many like free programs and communities and whatever, like no matter what you want to do, there's probably somewhere out there where you can put yourself in that situation. You just have to go find it. And most people won't, because again, it's painful, right? Like you don't want to hear where you're not good. But like, if you put it from the standpoint of like the athlete, right? Like the athlete goes into practice trying to get as good as possible for the game that's coming up. And so that's why the coach is there to say, hey, you're not doing this right. I need you to adjust this. The coach has those eyes on like where you need to improve. And you do it because you've got a bigger goal. You want to go out and win the game. You want to go out and win the championship. Where do I need to be to get there?
Exactly.
The only way to get there is through improvement. And you can only improve so much on your own, because it's really hard to see from that exterior perspective, like where your blind spots are. Like, as I said, it's really easy to fake yourself out and be like, oh, well, like I don't have weaknesses here. Like they're just hidden in a box in the closet. But then the coach is like, what's this closet marked weaknesses? Let's open that up and figure out what that is.
That's amazing. I agree with all of that. Actually, some of the best coaches that I've been around in my life, whether it's been friends like you or an actual coach in sports, are the people that tell me you need to get better at this. And I take it, if I respect that person, I take it with a grain of salt and I work my ass off to get better. If I don't respect the person that provides the criticism or whatnot, that's when my mental health starts to get a little bit like, well, if I don't love you as a person, like I can't respect what you're putting forward.
I think that's a good thing too, because that's the other side of it, right? Like there's no shortage of places to be criticized online. But most people like don't know you. They also have no idea what they're talking about. And so there's this idea of like, seek criticism from people that you respect and who know what they're talking about. And nobody else matters. Anybody else,
I love that.
We don't need to listen to them.
I love that.
Find the right sources to tell you where you suck, and listen only to them, because the rest of the people, they don't have your best interest at heart. 100%. They don't actually care. They don't know what they're talking about. Fuck them.
So that transitions really well into the next question, because what you just described your weaknesses are, or how you handle your weaknesses with mental health, is by seeking out and going through pain. That is what most people do naturally with mental health disorders, ADHD, autism, OCD, all of that, is they seek out the pain. It's almost like they want the pain. And they want the pain because in your brain, you can't distinguish between pain and euphoria. That is the difference with people with ADHD and autism and all these things. It is, if you're depressed, if you're down, your brain produces that same thing as if you're 100,000% euphoric. It's the same. Your brain can't tell the difference. And so while we transition into what are your strengths with ADHD, with autism, I think you just described your strengths as I asked you, what are your weaknesses?
You could tell that I've interviewed, right? Like, oh, what are your biggest weaknesses? I care too much.
It is time once again to give shout outs to the biggest supporters of this podcast. Without you, this does not take place. It just does not. So thank you, Leo Guinan. Here is another great supporter of this podcast that you are currently listening to. I would also like to thank Terry Shubilla, Kirk Hofstrom, Casey Elliott, Sarah Delano, Justin Allingham, Blushing Crafter, Jamie Young, and Beth Jones. I love all of you very, very much. More than you can know.
It's a cliche thing, but we're tying it all together right now because I firmly believe that when people describe their weaknesses, it's always they describe them in a way that says, but I did this. It's I'm weak in this area, but that's fascinating to me. That is a fascinating thing to me.
I think that there really is a lot to that. And I think probably my biggest strength at this point is my desire for self-awareness. And I'm not going to say my self-awareness. Like, I think it's pretty good compared to a lot of people because I've worked really hard at it. But it's the fact that the thing that I want most in the world is be able to understand exactly where I'm at. Because when I understand exactly where I'm at, I know exactly what I've got to do to get better. And that means that I have full control over the future that I live because I can choose. It's really easy to get a clouded view of where you're at. And it's really easy to think, oh, I'm awesome and I'm great. And there's some benefit in that. But if you want to truly hit like the ultimate heights of greatness, you've got to know exactly where you're at.
Yeah.
And you've got to know exactly where you've got to improve because you know what? Everybody out there is competing for that top spot and it's tough. And so if you really want to hit the ultimate heights, which isn't for everybody, if you don't want it, that's totally fine. Like, no judgment there. I kind of wish I didn't at some point. It's at some points, but that's kind of the one thing that I've really focused a lot on. And the other one is like my ability to see super long-term goals through. And so when I have this idea of like, I want to be here, I will achieve it. I probably won't achieve it nearly as quickly as I think I will. But when I have that idea, it's like, I'm not going to give up on it. I'm going to keep hammering away at it. I'm going to keep trying different approaches. I'm going to keep getting better. And eventually I'm going to get there. And then it's on to the next one. And, I'll stick to things a lot longer than most people. You keep pushing through on a lifetime basis, but you are willing to quit on a project basis. And so
that's a great quote. That is a phenomenal quote, Leo. Jesus Christ. Wow. Where did you pull that one? That was like the best ever.
Well, I've been, this is the stuff that I've been working on and learning, for like 3 years now. And again, if you look at like my success record, it's not good. Like, I've had all sorts of things that have flopped, but on that long-term life thing, every single time I continue improving, I continue learning, I keep moving forward. And that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm willing to cut my losses and throw shit away when I realize it's not working, because at that point, it's just not serving my goals anymore. And so you
might be a resilient motherfucker.
I think you could call it that. In other words that might be familiar, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run.
It's a great song.
It is a fantastic song. I do have one piece to argue with that. It says you never count your money when you're sitting at the table. That is bullshit. You always need to know.
You always count them. Yeah.
You always know exactly how much money you have, because you have to understand your positioning there.
100%.
But yeah, like, that's the thing, right? Like, you have to understand that your identity is not tied to the specific thing you're working on. And so as your identity continues to grow, you can drop pieces off, you can pull new pieces in. You don't need to have this static identity that's like, I am this, this, and this, and that's it. Because then when one of those leaves, you're like, oh, well, now who the fuck am I? And
Right.
that's what I kind of realized, right? And so like I kind of threw everything away from the get-go. And I, was like, well, I don't know who the hell I am, but I'm Leo and I'm here and I'm gonna do shit and I'm gonna see what happens. And just continuing to push forward and continuing to get better, continuing to learn and continuing to have fun. Like
Exactly.
all of that, it's all gonna work out in the end. And I'm totally confident in what I'm doing. Maybe this, new idea will work out, maybe it won't, but it doesn't actually matter. Something along the line will, because
But you're still doing it. You're
I'm
still
still doing it.
doing it. Like that's the definition of resilience, which I think that it's funny because speaking about this topic, some people don't want to talk about how good they are. Some people don't. And I get that. And I've got to get better at learning where people's comfort level is. But it's so interesting when you ask someone what they struggle with. They always follow it up. If they have ADHD, autism, all those things, any mental health disorder, they always follow it up by saying, but I'm trying to get better at this, or but I am doing this. There's always that but in there that makes their brain know that they are good. It's just that no one's fucking telling them the rest of the sentence. That's what makes me so angry about a lot of it. It's they say, but I'm trying to do this. Well, when was the last time after someone said that, someone else came in and said, I love that shit.
Right. That's so that's kind of like my biggest advice. And so this is something that I see a lot of people focusing on. They focus on the negatives and then they surround themselves with other people who focus on the negatives. And that creates this very, what's the word? I'm drawing a blank on the word I want to use because I think a lot of them have loaded connotations and I don't want to do that. But it ends up being a bad cycle, right? And then it's like people give up control. It's like,
yeah,
okay, this part sucks and I just have to deal with it and there's nothing I can do. And my whole thing is like, that's false. Every single thing that you struggle with, there are ways to overcome that. There are ways to compensate. Maybe it's medication, maybe it's having the right people behind you, maybe it's, learning automation that can help like support you when you're not, whatever. There's a million different ways. And the trick is finding the pieces that work for you. But I think my biggest advice to people who are struggling is don't worry about the weaknesses unless you're trying to figure out how to solve them.
Yeah. 100%. That's
sometimes you don't need to worry about it. You can't solve everything.
Right.
And focus on like one piece at a time.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with something right now, like focus on that and say, okay, how can I get a little bit better in this area? What's one small step I can take? Momentum matters.
Oh.
And so if you can just take one step, a little bit further, try one thing. Maybe it doesn't work. Fine. Try a different thing. Just focus on this one area.
Yeah.
Over time, that compounds immensely.
I love it.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, like I've got all of these different struggles, but I've got all these systems in place, all these mechanisms. I found people who, are offering advice on like different things I can try. And you'll find that you're surrounding yourself with the right people too. And that matters so much. If you're not able to advance, look at who you're surrounding yourself with.
100%.
Because you're probably surrounding yourself with the wrong people. Start adding in more positive people. Start, seeking out content where
just people that care. Just people that care.
Yeah, people who care. People who want to help.
Right.
Like,
so it's not only just whether being positive or negative, it's just caring. Like you have said so many times, fucking care more than anyone else. That is a quote from you in the episode with Reddy. I remember that. Like that was a brilliant statement. That's what we're doing. That's what
the ultimate way to be successful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise out there, and there's a lot of people who are in things for the wrong reasons. But if you care more than everybody involved, you'll stick with it longer, and all of that compounds, all of that, like that's what people resonate with.
Right.
And when you put that in front of people, like you start pulling people in towards you. And maybe you're not pulling in a giant audience online. You don't need to.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not pulling in the specific opportunities you want. But over time, you're just going to find like, oh, wow, like I've attracted all of these people to me based on what I care about because they also care about this thing. And like you just create this gravity around you online, and you know it attracts people over time. And the more people you have around you who understand how much you care and they understand how much they care, that just continues to pull more and more people in, and it becomes a very, very positive cycle that brings together a community. And communities get shit done.
Yes, they do. And on that note, last question is, can you pinpoint a time in your life where you were the most resilient you have ever been, and why?
I know the exact time.
Perfect.
Because it was when I truly understood what resiliency meant. I thought that I was being super resilient when I quit my job and I launched my startup and I gave everything into it, and I wasn't going to give up no matter what. And I thought that was what resiliency was. I didn't understand the true meaning of resiliency until I took a step back, realized this is not what I want out of life. I shut that startup down and I said, I'm going to start over again and figure out how I can do this in a way that resonates with what I want out of life. That was probably like the darkest place that I was in for a long time until I flipped on that light switch and I said, oh, now I get it. It's like you've got to know like what to just shut down. And understand that the game is longer than any single project or thing you're doing or whatever. It's a lifetime. And if you're putting so much into something and it's turning you into someone you don't want to be, that's a great time to call it quits. Take a step back and say, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? How can I do that? What's that next step?
And that's essentially me taking a break. I haven't turned into someone I don't want to be, but I can see it in the future as if I were to push this hard, this fast, more at this juncture, it's possible that I would turn into someone that I don't want to be. So the analogy of the fireworks here, and the reason it does is because I'm not pouring water on it. I have built this bonfire into a massive like thing. And I say massive, most people wouldn't agree with that, but I think it is because of the effect
anyone who's tried to like do it knows how big it is, because like you only see the like ultimate survivors typically, right? You don't see all the people who tried and didn't get nearly this far. And I'll tell you, you know, something like 90% of podcasts don't make it past the first 10 episodes, and you're here at 100. So just think about that for a second.
That's part of the
so we can stop throwing gasoline on the fire. Like it's big enough for now. We could set off on the gas because we're starting to get trees involved nearby. Maybe it's a little something.
Well, what happens is the flames will go down for a little bit when I take a break. So you won't be able to see the fire that much. The coals will remain so hot under the surface that no one will see, so that while they can't see the flames and all that kind of shit right now, it'll be okay. We have built it so hot that all I have to do is grab one more log when I'm ready, throw it back on, and it burns instantly. And that is my entire strategy with this, is like you go until you can't go anymore. But make sure that what you have established is so fucking rock solid that all you have to do is say, okay, I'm ready again. Let's go again. Let's go. I am going to ask you one more question, actually. A question no one else has gotten is, if you could ask me anything in the world, what would it be?
Well, that's a good one. And that was one I wasn't expecting.
I know.
Um,
Hey, it's the last one, man. We gotta.
with everything you've been able to do, with the community you've been able to pull around you, what's missing? What part isn't there yet that you're wanting?
It's a great one. I would say that the one thing that I'm missing is basically Lauren. I want to know, but from her, like that all of this is, and I know I can't gain that, but there is an L on my shirt. My logo is an L. What the fuck do you think Lauren starts with? That is how this all ties together. What's missing is the assurance that I made a promise that I would always help, and I'm doing that. But the assurance from her, like I want to hear her say it, and that's it, which sucks because I know I can't. But one day I will be able to. One day, I'm a highly emotional person, and it's just, but it leads me in the right directions. Like it leads me to the right things.
So from everything I know, I'm gonna tell you that she's incredibly honored and surprised and happy with how everything has turned out.
Yeah.
She's at peace and gets to be the spectator to see what what she ends up being the spark for, and that's as long as you're in someone's mind somewhere, as long as you're there's a record, and this is the stuff that's going to be able to last really forever at this point, where we're getting into that realm of stuff. And so I think from that standpoint, you've succeeded.
Like Leo, I don't want anyone else closing this out but you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just hijack this here for a second, and I'm gonna answer the question of what's one question I didn't ask you that you wish I did.
Okay.
And the question there is, how has this podcast changed my trajectory? And I'm going to tell you, if you go back and listen to my first episode, you'll be able to hear someone who has maybe a bit of an idea, not terribly confident. My ability to speak to a microphone and convey an idea is not anywhere near what it needed to be. I didn't have people around me who really understood what I stood for or understood what I was trying to do or where I was going. But since that first podcast, I found an incredibly supportive community where I can just be myself every single week without fail. I can come in, I can, share what I'm thinking, what I'm doing. I can, be in a place where I can help others. We could talk about the things that are meaningful in a way that I can't do anywhere else. And so from that initial DM to where I'm at now is very, very much due to what you have built with this podcast, with this community. It's been incredibly stunning to witness. It's been incredibly helpful to me as a person. And it's something that's going to inspire the world when they finally take notice, and they will, because you care long enough, and people do they do see it. They latch on.
Yeah.
This is a movement that is changing the world, and you kicked it off.
All it takes is the match.
All it takes.
All it takes.